Welcome to Tea with Carol. Sometimes we have thoughts go through our head and we wonder, where in the world did that come from? That's just cruel. Why did I think that? Lots of times a thought can go through our head, but it doesn't mean we have to grab it. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, take every thought captive in obedience to Christ, which is really good advice, but what does it mean? What do you do with it? How do you actually take every thought captive in obedience to Christ? I know for me, one of the ways is to be able to listen to what God is telling you. If I find that I have fallen into depression at any point, I can go back to the thought that caused the downward cycle. It's easy to find the root of what I was thinking when it started going downhill. If at that point I had taken captive that thought, I could have kept that downward spiral from happening. If I had cast it off, if I had gotten rid of it and not accepted it as my own. And the King James Version does say, cast off vain imaginations. These are things that they are not yours. They are not what you are believing. But also, I found that one time I was really upset and I was really hurting. And I was on the bed, I was crying, and suddenly the Lord said to me, sit up. And I was shocked. I was like, what? What's up? Here I am suffering. And he said, that's self-pity. And I realized I was feeling sorry for myself. And I know that's wrong. That is not going to accomplish anything. That's just going to make me miserable. So anytime I'm feeling bad now, I check in with him and say, is this self-pity? And it's funny how quickly I can get rid of it when I realize, oh, I'm feeling sorry for myself. A lot of times when we take on that place of being the victim, we can stay in the torment. But in the midst of a difficult situation that's hard, if you become the student in God to what it is He's teaching you in that situation, you will grow through it and you will end up with your character being built. You will end up with the reward of going through that with Christ. Take every thought captive. That's also expressed in the Bible in a different way, like put on and put off. So we are taking it captive and we're casting off the vain imaginations. But we can't just take something away and leave it empty. We have to put on what is God's thought about those things. Someone I know was struggling with flying and having a lot of difficulty. They were Christian, they trusted in God, but they were really tormented by having to fly. It was very difficult for them. And the Lord gave them the scripture, Proverbs 3:25, have no fear of sudden disaster. That scripture became a lifeline for them of bringing them peace whenever they had to face flying. Because scripture is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword. It actually is powerful when we replace the fear with scripture or with God's truth or with God's thoughts. What should we do then? What is actually taking every thought captive? What's the walking it out? What's the practical side of it? First, we realize that the thoughts going through our head are not necessarily our thoughts. We don't have to own them. that we can take them off, that we can replace them with something else. And what are the practical ways to take every thought captive? You replace that thought with Scripture. That was the example we gave. And you can also replace that thought with God's thought on the subject, whatever He's speaking to you at the time. There are mindsets that we have. Mindsets are beliefs that we have that are based on either lies or things that at least that are not the way God thinks about them. Those are the things God's working in our lives to try to, in our hearts and in our minds, to remove so that we can walk in the freedom of knowing who He is, knowing who He wants us to be, how He wants us to live, to come into alignment with God in walking that out. And then the scripture in the Bible in Philippians 4:8 is so comforting and always helpful, that says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So God has given us a focus. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. That's where we place our thoughts. And allow the tormenting thoughts. Just cast them up unto Him. God bless. Talk to you soon.